Zohran Mamdani is the new mayor of New York City, and he has promised everything: free childcare, free buses, and even government-run grocery stores, all paid by the wealthy. Sounds great, right? There's only one problem. Governor Hochul has already come out and said she's not funding any of it. And just like Brandon Johnson in Chicago, Mamdani is selling dreams with no money. Meanwhile, the wealthy are already starting to leave the city in anticipation of these higher taxes. Let's talk about why nothing in politics is ever truly free and who winds up picking up the tab. I think the answer is going to surprise you. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notification bell. Let's get this started.
So Zohran Mamdani was joined today by Senator Elizabeth Warren, who had high praise for Mamdani's message of affordability. They appeared together at District Council 37 Union headquarters to promote Mamdani's plan to provide free universal child care for kids 6 weeks to 5 years old. And if elected, Mamdani says he also wants to raise the wages for child care workers. Right now, the city does offer child care vouchers for eligible families, but Mamdani says this doesn't go far enough, saying for some families, childcare can cost around $25,000 a year in New York City. Mamdani says he plans to pay for this by raising taxes on billionaires. Governor Kathy Hochul has shot down this proposal, but Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie has said he would be open to the conversation. Senator Warren also criticized former Governor Andrew Cuomo, saying he's too busy cozying up to these billionaires. Warren did sort of dodge a question, though, about some establishment Democrats like Senator Chuck Schumer and Governor Kathy Hochul, and if they're missing an opportunity to endorse Mamdani.
This is an opportunity for every Democrat, for every independent, and for every Republican who feels turned off by a Donald Trump who promised to lower costs and then delivered higher costs for working people to step up and be part of this race.
So you heard it right there. He wants billionaires to pay for free universal health care from 6 weeks old to 5 years old, basically until the kids go to school, because it's too unaffordable, costing some people $25,000 a year. But that's an argument between the governor, Governor Hochul, and the mayor. It is completely inappropriate for Senator Warren to invoke the name of Donald Trump. He doesn't have anything to do with the promises and, dare I say, prevarications that Mamdani promised people while he was running, because I'm going to show you in a minute, depending upon billionaires, was a flawed plan from the beginning.
Consumers living in U.S. urban areas have been affected by the rise in grocery prices. Over the past 40 years, prices have tripled, putting a strain on household budgets. To put it another way, what $1 could buy in groceries in 1985 will cost more than $3 in 2025. Zohran Mamdani is advocating for city-owned grocery stores to make food more affordable, and the idea is gaining traction. A March 2025 survey of 854 likely New York City voters found that 2/3 support the creation of municipal grocery stores.
These stores will operate without a profit motive or having to pay property taxes or rent, and will pass on those savings to you.
And this is what happens when you allow someone to be elected as the executive of the largest city in the country when they have no private sector experience. Getting rid of the cost of rent and getting rid of the cost of taxes, that's one thing, but the profit margins in grocery stores is less than 2%. It's less than 2%. People who run grocery stores for a living are competing all the time to try and carve out more market share, to be more profitable. These are individuals that do this all day, every day, 365, 7 days a week. And this man is going to just come out of nowhere, like I said, never having run a private business. And he's got the solution. He's just going to get rid of taxes and get rid of the rent. But guess who picks up the tab for that?
Take it in. A true icon of New York, the Staten Island Ferry. The Staten Island Ferry is a beacon on the waters of New York City, shuttling about 45,000 people a day. And the best part? It's free. For decades after opening in 1898, the Staten Island Ferry was just a nickel. Then, in the 1970s, the fare rose to a quarter. And in 1990, 50 cents. But since 1997, the ferry's been free. So So when people say buses can never be free, don't ask them to take a hike. Ask them to take the ferry. On June 24th, let's get some more free transit.
Sounds great. Hey, that ferry was a nickel back in the 1800s, and then over the course of more than 100 years, the price went up 50 cents. But you notice how a moment ago they were talking about the price of groceries. They said in 1985, what you could spend or what you could get for $1 costs you $3 in 2025. So the price of groceries over the course of 40 years went up 200%. But the price of riding the ferry went from a nickel to 50 cents. And then guess what now? It's free. So since the ferry is free, we can make all the buses free, correct? Here's the problem. That costs over $800 million. Who has to pick up the tab for that? The state. Governor Hochul said, no, not doing that. Not writing a check for $800 million. Nor should she. This is the same thing happening in the city of Chicago. In the state of Illinois, they just had a similar situation where they were trying to fund public transit. What did they do? They raised the gas tax and they raised the price of tolls when you drive on the tollways and on the highways. So they're making people who drive cars subsidize public transit for people who ride trains and buses. But in New York City, he just wants to just make it free. And the state pick up the tab or the billionaires pick up the tab. That's not how you run a business. The bus service is a business. But again, the city of New York just elected someone with zero business experience. So guess who picks up the tab? Wait for it.
Well, certainly Wall Street got the message, right? Because they're all leaving in droves, building lots of buildings in Dallas. They've been building in Tennessee, building in Florida. So the business people have gotten the message and are implementing action plans to counter it. Individuals have less choice. They have to have a job where they work where they work, and they have to stay in New York, perhaps. They can't just move to Florida. Right. They don't have a job there.
Jamie Dimon says you have to be in the office 5 days a week. You're in the office 5 days a week. The other Fortune 100 companies, you have to be in the office on average 4 days a week. So you can't really just up and move like you could over COVID. But people are moving to Florida in droves. They are moving to Texas, where there's opportunity.
Let's talk a little bit more about Texas for a second here, Dolly.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to talk a little bit more about Texas. The New York Post reporting that Dallas, to your point, has more recently become a major draw for these big financial firms that were born and raised in the Big Apple. One CEO telling them that New York is still the financial capital of the U.S. and one of the financial capitals of the world, but Texas can compete.
So Zohran Mamdani, while he was running, Brandon Johnson, while he was running, while he's governing, Karen Bass in Los Angeles, when they come out with these taxes that they want to just start taking money from rich people so they can subsidize their far left socialist ideas, the first thing you hear from them is no one's going to leave New York, no one's going to leave Chicago, no one's going to leave Los Angeles, respectively. These people love the city. They'll go ahead and subsidize these ideas. But here's the problem in New York. New York, the state income tax ranges anywhere from 4 to 10% because they have a progressive income tax. Mamdani wants to take that billionaire's tax to 11.5%. They're already paying 37% federal income tax. So you've got 37 plus 10 plus 11.5. You're asking these people to give over 50% of their income in the form of taxes. And just answer this question. For those of you who are out there listening, what would happen to your actual quality of life if you had to give away 50% of your money? I know some of you hear that and say, well, these are billionaires, these are centimillionaires and decamillionaires and millionaires. They're not going to have any decrease in their standard of living. But think about this from a fairness perspective. Would you want to give away more than half of your income to fund ideas that you may or may not agree? And again, they're assuming people are just going to stay in New York and take it, and they're not.
Socialist. He's not. He's a socialist. He's closer to a communist. He said it. He's on the record saying he wants to put as many socialists in power so he can seize the means of production. This guy, to me, hates the American dream. He hates what made this country great. Yeah. He hates capitalism. He wants a fundamental shift in what has built this company, and he doesn't really particularly hide it.
said throughout the entirety of this campaign that this is a campaign to bring the struggles of working New Yorkers back to the focus of our politics and to ensure that City Hall is seen as a place that not only recognizes those struggles, but actually delivers on the material needs of those workers.
We are in this boat and we are in it together. The electorate has spoken and the new mayor will be inaugurated. Kevin O'Leary has sat behind this desk and said he's wanted to reach out to him and talk to him, but that the other side wasn't responsive to him. But I think business leaders in the community have a responsibility to say, this is what we were dealt, and we need to deal with it in the best way possible to make sure that the rest of the capital that's left here doesn't fly the coop, because the only thing that hurts is the city. Now, I hope the mayor-elect will be open to their suggestions, open to listening and talking, because he wasn't to Kevin O'Leary, and that somehow this can come full circle in a different way.
Let me just throw another ingredient in the stew here. So Bernie Sanders has come out and said Mamdani's win is the evidence that the leftward move of his candidacy should mean the leftward move of the party, because it means the leftward move of America. Watch this.
What is the risk for the midterms next year if the party leadership does not embrace this flank of the party?
Well, the party leadership did not support Mamdani in New York, and he won. So I think it is, I think there is a growing understanding that leadership and defending the status quo and the inequalities that exist in America is not where the American people are.
Get on the socialist train, Taylor.
Thanks for that one. I don't think this works on a broad scale. I think we've all talked that the voters in New York City are very, very left. And this is, Jackie, to your point, a lot of the right people left. And so what you're left is an electorate that is grossly to the left of the median person in America. I choose to believe that we are more alike than we are different, and that this New York City does not have national repercussions.
And they're right. It is completely inappropriate, dare I say myopic, naive, to assume that what happened in New York City is a bellwether for the country. But I do want to just make this final point. Whenever you hear a politician say they're going to make something free, again, you got Mamdani talking about free buses, free healthcare, free childcare, all these things that he wants to make free, rent freezes, everything else that he wants to do. I want you to substitute the word free for taxpayer subsidize, because that's what it means. It's free to the end user, but somebody still has to pick up that tab. Somebody still has to pay that bill. So who pays for it? The taxpayers. What Mamdani and Brandon Johnson and Karen Bass and a lot of these other left-wing progressive Democratic mayors are hoping is that they can take enough money from rich people and that those funds can subsidize all of their ideas and initiatives. Here's the problem, and we're seeing this in New York and we're seeing this in Chicago. As capital continues to leave the city, if the millionaires and the billionaires and the businesses flee these cities, then you've already spent that money as a city. When they pass that budget, that money is already allocated. So now, if the people on whom they were depending to fund these ideas leave, who's left to pick up the tab? You are. The middle, the working, the lower class, the poor. If that's all who is left, then you have to pick up that tab. So eventually, the bill is going to get passed on to the people who make the least money and have the lowest mobility. And this is really just as simple as that. You cannot just force the people who are the wealthiest among us to pay for and subsidize the needs of everyone else. There's a middle ground. There's a fairness. I believe in a progressive tax system. I do believe that someone who makes $1 billion a year should be paying more than someone who's making $10,000 a year. However, I don't think when you get to the point where you're taking more than half of what someone earns, now it's becoming onerous, now it's becoming unfair, and people are going to react, and that's what they're doing. They're taking their resources and they're going elsewhere. Texas has a zero state income tax and doesn't have a city income tax. So if you live in New York City under Mamdani and you relocate from New York City to the state of Texas, right off, you're going to save 21% in taxes. You're not going to have to pay that 10% state income tax you're paying in New York, and you're not going to have to pay that 11.5% city tax that Mamdani wants to pass. Who's not going to leave the city of New York to save 21.5% of their income? This is just common sense. But again, when you put people in charge who have never run a private business, who have never been responsible for making a payroll and for making sure that enough money is coming in so you have enough money to fund whatever it is that enterprise is. If someone has never done that, they don't understand that basic principle, and we have allowed too many of these individuals who have zero business acumen to run our 3 largest cities. I appreciate you for hanging out this long. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. If you really like this video, drop a like or a hype, but let's get in the comment section and let me know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe Mamdani and maybe plans like his and Brandon Johnson are exactly what this country needs. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I appreciate you for hanging out this long, and I'll catch you in the next one.